our source of wisdom. You have existed before, even before you revealed yourself to us. You have embraced us even before we have professed belief in you. You have called us even before we knew your name. Move all of us, your children, of different confessions and even of non-confession, to your empowering and consoling well. Let our minds, hearts, and wills be instruments of your plans and appeals to heal this broken world, to mend relationships, to acknowledge and to use knowledge as animators of your grace and love. We ask you this through Jesus Christ, the restorer of distorted wisdom, and the Holy Spirit, our guide and advocate against confusions and loss of directions. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, good morning once again. And thank you for showing up to our class. For your classmates who couldn't be here, so anyway, we're recording this class so that we can disseminate this to them. And then please inform them that next week we'll have our exercise at the beginning of our class. I don't call it exam, just an exercise, and especially on Kant, on Immanuel Kant. Okay, so I don't really, as you, who's this Capuchin Youth Commission? Is this the Franciscans in Batangas?
It's me, Father.
Okay. So you have 5 monitors, Pius. I realize you have 5 accounts. Yeah. So thank you very much for your very kind of deep and hugot confessional ontology. And to be honest, I don't want to grade that one because it's kind of a underestimation of your interior journey. But my grading was based so much on expectations of a confessional ontology or ontobiography, like it has to have this inward progression, although all of your papers had this inward progression. And then of course the target audience, which is no less than God, that's precisely where many kind of missed, as if you're talking to yourself or talking to somebody like who doesn't know you. So if the target audience is God, so you don't focus so much on introducing your kind of bio details, but rather the deeper dimension of your biological or sociological condition. And then of course, lastly, the mode, which should be prayerful mode in a prayer, and many of you was able to do that. But anyway, so thank you so much for that. That's also what I require my seminarians when I was still rector of our college and theology seminary. When I asked them to write an evaluation, I told them, do not write it as if somebody's going to evaluate you or to kind of a process you. Write it to God. I mean, what will you say to God? Of course, it's very difficult for seminarians because you know there are human readers of your evaluations, and human readers would tend to measure your writing according to the standard of a human reader. So if you expect grades from this class, which I really hate to reduce your wisdom into numbers or letters, and that's why I don't give quizzes, because they're kind of a intellectual lottery. I mean, it's a matter of what you've studied, which came out of the exam, so they don't really warrant your knowledge. So I'm more into kind of a different ways how you could bring down your knowledge into the web of your life and existence. And also I prefer like this deliberation. When I ask you, that's the time where I can check whether you caught up with something with our discussion. So what we're trying to do is trying to relax our discussions on this heavyweight philosophers, okay, from John Duns Scotus and then down to Heidegger. So we have Kant and Heidegger coming, and it's kind of sad that I have to tackle Kant today, although it could be difficult, but we'll try to do this in a more recreational way, more relaxed way, because I want to have two sessions for Martin Heidegger, which is the culmination of our course. Okay, but again, this is introductory. If you have your epistemology, for example, next semester, wherever your epistemology professor will be, then he should be able to tackle the epistemological, shall we say, conceptual aspect of this philosopher. So the problem is you should have a package of orientation of these philosophers epistemologically, logically, in order for you to have a greater grasp of their metaphysics. I noticed sometimes, and I expected it, for some of you, it was heavy, kind of a grasping Thomas Aquinas, because I tried to talk about Thomas Aquinas in a speculative manner. Because Thomas Aquinas, and also John Duns Scotus and William of Ockham would like to present their metaphysics away from revelation, so away from theology. That's why it should be independent of a divine reason. That's why it should sound kind of a very conceptual, or shall we very kind of a cerebral, because they wanted to establish metaphysics as a science out of natural reason rather than divine reason. So that's why it could sound very conceptual. And I could see how it was so devastating for some of you. Now, we'll try to just have a little summation of Thomas Aquinas, just to give you a good transit to John Duns Scotus, which will also just have a little review this morning prior to our approach to Immanuel Kant. And we'll try to present Thomas in a particular context, and maybe you'll understand him more than what I did before. I just focus him independently of Christian life, independently of theological context. So we'll try to look at Thomas Aquinas. We'll see if you can grasp his metaphysics by way of looking at it in terms of application to our Christian life. How would it matter? What's the repercussion of this ontology on our day-to-day lives? So we'll check, and then we'll see if I would like you to raise your hands either in your monitor. I just would like to know whether you've grasped Thomas Aquinas' metaphysics before we can just have a passage to John Duns Scotus and Immanuel Kant. Okay, are you ready? Or do you have some questions and clarifications? Maybe can somebody tell me what's difficult with the way we treated Thomas Aquinas last time, and probably with John Duns Scotus? What could be very challenging for you in terms of reception? So nothing, which means everything was easy?
No. I'm just...
Okay. Okay.
I'm just trying to form the question first.
Yeah, sure. For others, please, unless you have a very good reason, please put on your video, because it's tantamount to absence, or probably absolute existence if you're not putting on your video. So you have questions, or?
Because I just for me only. I because I have some. I cannot.
This is.
I'm Hoàng, Father. I'm Hoàng.
Okay.
Because for last meeting you were talking about the essence and the existence of from Thomas Aquinas, but for me I could not really grasp his idea about this two, Father. You said that it's have to be separated, but uh, I cannot really grasp the meaning of those two, Father. Even I read
Uh,
it again, but
the meaning of essence and the meaning of existence, you mean?
yes, Father.
Okay, can somebody iterate that to Wang if you remember, or if you get the sense, what do we mean by essence and what do we mean by existence? If you separate it from each other, so what do you mean by essence? So for example, Wang, the essence of this is ball penness, okay? That's the essence, okay? And the existence is being used for writing, in the act of being a ball pen. You get that?
Not yet, Father.
Okay, so you have this, the essence of this thing I'm holding is a ball pen. By essence, it's a general, it's a communal term for everything, okay? For every individual thing like this. And then how does this ball pen exist? For writing, okay? That's why we call existence as act of being, okay? And you remember in Aristotle, right? The existence, I mean, you will become, your existence will be close to your essence if you are at your telic level, a table, right, for dining, okay? So they can be separated, tableness and for dining, but they're so used. That's why for Thomas Aquinas, I don't know, for Aristotle, you are what is done to you repeatedly, right? A table, you can actually separate the tableness from for dining, right? You can separate them, right? But because you do to the table almost every day, every time you do it, dining now is as if you're one, or you get that? So the act of being, okay, for dining, in Aristotle we call this the telos, the purpose, okay. In Thomas Aquinas we call this the act, the action, okay, of being. Now you do this repeatedly to an object, or for example me, I teach every day. That's why my gwenness is already associated to an existence called teaching, right? I exist as a teacher, no, like that. So now teaching has become part of my essence. In finite objects, this can be separated, okay? You can still separate them, although sometimes they are closely associated, essence and existence, at the highest level. But in God, you cannot separate them. There's no way that God and Godding can be separated. But logically, you can see which one is the Godness and which one is the act of being God. Okay, like creating, for example, redeeming, for example, or animating, for example. So these are acts of Godness, but you remove this from God and he is no longer God. So they are necessarily one with God. In finite beings like us, my being a teacher could be removed from me and I am still Gwen. You get that? And the task of Thomas Aquinas is to find that existence of ours wherein, as if you remove it from you, you are no longer. So your struggle is to become like an angel, actually. The essence of an angel is to be the mouthpiece of God. And you have to stick to it. Otherwise, you're no longer an angel. So that's why Thomas Aquinas is called the angelic doctor. His goal is to, to make everything on this earth be like angels, okay? That our essence and existence could be so close to each other, so tied to each other, but such closeness should be aligned with what God wants you to be, Okay, what is the essence that God designates to you? And that's precisely what we are searching for. Okay, so if I'm going to apply that to our Christian life, the goal of Thomas Aquinas' metaphysics is to make everything, okay, not only as human beings, even this kind of bottles, even these cups, okay, how can they be conceived, okay, analogically like God, okay, and how is to be like angels? Do you get that one? At least closer.
Yes, Father. So can I say my idea? Is it right? Can you
Sure,
correct me?
sure. You can articulate, yeah.
The essence here is like the action of the object or the things that the object will do. You designate or you explain uh, who the object or the person who is talking about, like a carpenter. He has to do the things that carpenter has to do. If we
Yeah.
remove the action, his action, like making a table, he is no longer to be a carpenter. Father, is it right, Father?
No, no, no. Uh, a carpenter, okay, so if you have a person, uh, you have a human person, okay, and his act of being a person could be so many ways, okay. He could be doing basketball. So what happens is that if you go to that second level of Aquinas's dyadic structure, you notice that substance plus 9 categories. And you remember in Aristotle what we did? We had an example of this person so kind of preoccupied with the basketball, right? You remember that? So at that level, if if you did it only once, it will not characterize you. So it's a matter of physics. It's only an accident that you're holding a bowl. But if you're doing that every hour already or every day, so it would become associated with you. So it will elevate you from the substantial accidental level. It will elevate you to essential existential level, meaning you're being a basketballer will identify you, your essence already. You get that? Yeah. That's what Thomas Aquinas would like to do with his metaphysics. Is precisely Aristotelian. Many, especially in the late medieval period, the reference for their philosophizing is Aristotle. In fact, if you go against Aristotle, you'll be declared a heretic. So Thomas Aquinas was a standard in terms of normative theological articulation because of his because of the way he systematized, okay, philosophy aligned with theology, but this philosophy is drawn from Aristotle. That's why if you destroy Aristotle, you're also destroying Thomas Aquinas. If you destroy Thomas Aquinas, then the Dominicans will charge you the Dominicans will kind of charge you with heresy and you'll be burned. Okay, so that's the privilege of the Dominicans. Okay, is that clear? I hope.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father.
Okay, so we'll try to have this quick review very quickly, and we're going to repeat what I did, what I said to Wang. Okay, could you please read this, Apollo?
From Aquinas to John Duns Scotus, from dyadic structure to transcendental realism. The goal of establishing metaphysics as a science is not just to supply a rational account for the existence of God, but to reclaim the things in this world back to their essential essential creatureliness,
Yeah, creatureliness.
their belongingness to the plan and design of God. The scholastic emphasis on order of belonging to God is at play here. Hence, one of the marked methodology of monasticism is ordo inventionis, order of discovery from complex to simple, from composite to essential community.
Okay, so you stop there. Is this clear, my dear brothers? Claro.
No, no.
Huh? So you have to remember the medievalists are so preoccupied with order. It came to a point that, and if you remember, if you had ethics already with Aquinas, I don't know if you had already, he has this what we call eternal law, right? And then you have this divine law. And then you have this natural law. This is in his Summa Theologica. This must be mentioned in your medieval philo and your ethics. And then you have the human law. Okay. The eternal law are those knowledge, those nature of God, which only God knows. Okay. It is, we call this transcendent identity of God. The divine law is the identity of God revealed to us. We call this immanent nature of God, revealed to us by the Bible, by the world around us. Okay, and the natural law is the perfect order of the world aligned, okay, with the divine law. The perfect order of nature or of the world aligned with the divine law. So at this level, mga kapatid, things are still very much aligned according to Thomas Aquinas. When you reach the human law, you have relativism. Depending on culture, depending on point of view. So in this case, we are scattered according to human law. The project of natural law in Thomas Aquinas, this is question 95 of the second part of Summa Theologica. The target is to make this human law, these scattered cultures, these scattered things, okay, be gathered around the natural law and then to the divine law, okay, up to this level. You get this? So this is what we call the natural order. If you remember also, if you have your ethics already, in his theory of conscience, for example, you have these two levels of conscience. You have this synderesis, the inner conscience, and you also have this conscientia, which is the surface conscience. Surface conscience, conscientia is a shallow conscience. It's a guilt based on culture, based on what your father told you not to do and what to do. These are very shallow, okay? The project of Thomistic conscience-based morality is to bring the surface conscience to the core, wherein you have the voice of God telling you what to be guilty of, what to be compunction, to have compunction of, and not on the basis of surface conscience. So this is kind of very consistent in Thomas Aquinas. That's why he is the reference in terms of systematizing doctrines, okay? And in our church, my dear brothers, following Thomas Aquinas, this hierarchy of orders also. So according to the medievalist, our church has two kind of orders. We have this what we call hierarchical order, and then the charismatic order. The hierarchical order, you have the laity, order of the laity, and then you have the holy orders. Okay, holy orders, you have the deacons, you have the priests, and the bishop. The Pope is just one of the bishops. The Pope is just one of the bishops. Ka-level lang siya sa mga bishops. So this is what we call the holy order. Klaro mga kapatid? But amazingly, but this is what we call human order or sacramental order. There is another order, mga kapatid, which is beyond the sacraments, meaning beyond the holy order, beyond this human order. And this order we call the charismatic order. And this is very shocking. And until now, the Second Vatican Council corrected this, but the mindset of people, especially here in Rome, that those in the charismatic orders are higher than those in the hierarchical order. When you speak of charismatic orders, who are they? The order of Franciscans, the order of Dominicans, the order of the Augustinians, the Recollects. They're higher than the sacraments. That's why our being a religious is higher than priesthood. We are beyond the sacraments. Why? Because we religious, unlike the diocesan priests, okay, we have to live like angels. Our vows, poverty, chastity, and obedience are values of angels, that you are to be bound by flesh. So we are supposedly, di ba, pious? You remember this? So those who are professing this vows, we really belong to the religious order.
Consecrated life.
We belong to the angelic order. Meaning, our religious vows, our being a religious is higher than being a priest. That's why when you notice in the medieval period, the popes will bow to the monks. Okay, when Saint Francis, when Francis went to the Vatican, he was only a brother, not yet a deacon, because he was ordained deacon, but really not even a priest. But all the bishops bowed to him because the contention was those who are in religious orders were angelic orders. What say you about this? But of course, now our pastoral theologians are trying to correct this. Okay, that's why if you are a religious, and then somebody will tell you you'll be appointed bishop. Thomas Aquinas, for example, many times he was asked to become a bishop, but he said to be a bishop is a retrogression. It's a demotion, because being a religious is higher than these orders. So if you are a Claretian and you'll be appointed bishop, you think you're higher? No, from the perspective of medievalist ordinatio or ordo inventionis, no. It's a demotion. That's why many of the religious who were asked to become bishops will decline, because it is a demotion. Because you will go closer to the people, and monks are supposedly kind of secluded from the people. You are to live like angels, okay? That's why it's, I mean, for us, for example, Passionists, I don't know with the Claretians, okay? You could be sent out of the congregation if it would be discovered you are trying your best to become a bishop, for example, because what happens is you are trying to give in to human order. When you say ecclesial order, hierarchical, meaning you give in to natural order. Okay, so the metaphysics of Thomas Aquinas is like that. Okay, how can these scattered things around, okay, this pen, how can they be raised to an order wherein they'll become an ens commune? Meaning, you have to belong. This one, if you're isolated, it doesn't belong to an order or to a community. So the ontological formulations of Thomas Aquinas would wish, okay, to elevate all things, okay, to the status of communal order. Claro? Apollo, could you please continue? Okay, this ordo inventionis, okay, look at that note. Okay, could you please read that note? Apollo.
Part, brother?
The note. Okay.
This is not the same as the Neoplatonic emanation, a cosmological generation not in view of creation out of nothing, Hence, being is an ens commune, a community wherein everything in this world should belong. An isolated being is far from the fullness of being.
So if you are this cup, you will not be called a cup. You are called a cup because there are other cups which make you belong to this community of cups. Okay. So that's the project. Is this clear, my dear brothers? Is Aquinas is getting clearer now? Hmm? Or okay, this is my. I hope this will suffice for everyone. You remember in Aquinas, I pointed this dyadic structure, essence, existence. This is what we call the essential level of the order, essential level. And then you have this existence comes by way of substance plus the 9 categories or the accidents. Okay. Again, and then this substance is composed of matter, which we call designated matter, meaning it's a wood, it's a metal, designated by this form. Okay. So, for example, we're talking of, okay. So we have this matter, designated matter, like a rubber, for example. This is a rubber. And then this rubber will be designated by this form. Okay, you get this? So when this form will designate this matter, it will become a bowl. Okay, but before it could become a bowl, when this matter is raised to this level, because the form is designated to that, the question now, what is this? Okay, so you have the accidents, as we mentioned in the discussion during Aristotle. Okay, you speak of quality, this is round, and then you speak of what's this? What are the Apollo? What are the other? We speak of quantity. This is big. Okay, we speak of relation. It's bigger than another round object. Okay, and then action, it's passion, it's being dribbled. Okay, so at this level, okay, at this substantial level, its nature, okay, is like a basketball, for example. So at this level, you can still separate. Here, the separation is very strong because this matter has very far compared to this form. At this level, parang it's closer na. It's a bit closer na. So this object is used, okay, accidentally often, and that's why you could call it kind of a basketball, for example. But then this is still weak because you can still separate this one easily. The project is to raise this ball at the level of other objects. Okay, you have this one, you have this billiard ball, you have this tennis ball, for example. So you have this essential ball. You get that? So the target is to make all this, because these are nothing. If it stays as a matter or designated matter, it has to rise. And at this level, you are like the angels already, meaning supposing that the ball is the one intention by those closer to God, like humans who are closer to God and closer to angels, then you belong, you have your essential level in the essential communal order. Klaro mga kapatid? Is that clear already? The same with us human beings. At the lowest level, your body is your designated matter, okay? And then your soul is the form, okay? And then at the substantial level, what do you do? you a teacher, as what you do every day, but it's not enough because your being a student could still be separated from you, right? It's just accidental nature. The thing now is to the higher level. What if namatay ka? Okay, that's precisely your humanity is one with other humans, and that's why at the essential level you still have matter. At the essential level, my dear brothers, here a thing still has matter. Okay, the bowl, or for example, it has matter, but the matter here is no longer the designated matter, but what we call the undesignated matter. Undesignated meaning the notion of bowl, which doesn't belong to this designated matter rubber. You remember Aristotle? This is very much the same with Aristotle. I mean, what we call the metaphysical, okay, matter. Okay, the material, shall we say, causes, for example. Okay, so, and how is this significant for us human beings and even for creatures? When we go to heaven, according to our belief, we have the resurrection of the body, meaning we still have this matter, but it's no longer the designated matter, but the undesignated matter. Our body is a glorified body, just like what happened to Jesus after the resurrection. Okay, that's why at first Mary Magdalene did not recognize him, because it seems it's no longer him. So that's the same with you. You still have matter and body, but it's no longer a designated body, meaning lifeless, okay? Dependent on some animating factor. You are an undesignated, meaning your body exists at par with your soul as one. I hope klaro na si Aquinas, mga kapatid. Is this clear? Apollo, is this clear for you, Apollo?
Yes, clear, Father.
Okay, Antonio, my favorite boy, is this clear for you, Antonio?
Yes, Father.
Thank you, thank you. How about Jesus? Is this clear?
Yes, see.
Okay. So, sisiyo na lang sa inyo si Thomas Aquinas after all. Okay. Okay. Okay, Raj, could you please read this, Raj? We'll continue. I only have 3-point kind of summary. So, we see, Jason, please.
The idea, higher order community of beings, is that the angels, infinite beings whose essence stand close to God. Finite beings may be aligned with infinites. Our capacity to elevate and reclaim these finite created beings rests on our knowledge of neutrality, immaterial objects, which we can use for the analogy between the being of God and the being of things. This comes dyadic structure, essence, existence, substance, accident, matter, form. In infinite beings, God or angels, essence, existence is one. There is no dyad. In infinite beings, things in this world, essence, existence, are distinct or separable. The goal is for things in the world to extend to angelic essence, existence, relationship.
Okay, so that's just a recapitulation of what we've gathered and iterated. Okay, is this clear, my dear brothers? Claro? The challenge now is this Franciscan called John Duns Scotus, and the reason why he was not beatified, okay, until 600 years after only. He was beatified only in 1993 by John Paul II. Imagine, after 600 years, he was never beatified because of of the danger of his thought, but it's a very powerful thought. Okay. Okay, but if you notice, many of the Franciscan philosophers were not canonized. William of Ockham, only Bonaventure was canonized. Do you know why? Bonaventure? Why? Do you know why? No, you don't have your microphone, Pius.
Nominalism. It's
What?
nominalism, borderline heresy.
See Bonaventure? No, Bonaventure is a saint, right? Why is among these giant philosophers, Aquinas, William of Ockham, John Duns Scotus, okay, and Bonaventure, among the Franciscans, only Bonaventure was kind of a declared saint. But the two great philosophers, William of Ockham and John Duns Scotus, are still struggling to be canonized.
From what I read, it's something to do with nominalism, but it's like, according to them, borderline heresy.
Yeah,
I don't understand why.
nominalist, and of course, as we'll discover today and last time, John Duns Scotus is a very kind of aggressive kind of a philosopher. Okay, but the main reason I heard Pius is that Bonaventure is an Italian, so it's easier for you to become a saint if you're an Italian, even if you're a heretic. But if you're an Italian, so easily. So William of Ockham is British, and John Duns Scotus is a Scot, so it's difficult. Okay, that's why it's easier for a Malay to become a saint than to be a Filipino sometimes. Okay, so that's precisely the reason. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, but anyway, we'll go to our final kind of summative statement. Could you please read this, Harold? For John Duns Scotus.
For John Duns Scotus, being is transcendentia. It is univocal, which means the way we apply it to God, being of God, is the same as we apply it to us and to things, being of things. This means, first, being transcends the dyadic structures, essence to existence, substance to accidents, form to matter, infinite to finite. Second, when we speak of being, even when applied to things, things are also infinite beings. And not only that, their essence is also one with their existence. So the being of things is not just like that of angels, because being of angels in Aquinas are still lower than being of God. The being of things is the same as the being of God, as transcendent as the being of God. At this, John Duns Scotus culminated medieval metaphysics as transcendental ontology, or transcendental realism.
Is this clear for everyone?
Yes, Father.
Okay, what John Duns Scotus did was that in Aquinas, at least for Aquinas, you have this dyadic structure, essence, eggs, sub, act, and then matter, form. At least the dream of Aquinas is only to be at the level of angels. Okay, God is here. Okay, only God has essence and existence as one. Okay, the rest are separable. With angels, it's like one, but you can still separate it. Okay, this is the transcendent level. Only God can be at this level. Even if you reach the level of angels, your essence and existence could still be separable because you're derived. Your essence and existence are derived from the essence and existence of God. If you separate from God, then you go back to this level. Okay. But what John Duns Scotus did is even to go beyond the angels. When you speak of the being of a bowl, okay, the being of a can, the being of humans, okay, is the same as the being of God. It's as transcendent as the being of God, meaning the essential bowl is the existential bowl. It's one. You cannot separate them. Okay? So what Aquinas would do is to remove this dyadic structure. Okay? This, shall we say, infinite versus finite thing. Okay? For us, for John Duns Scotus, when you speak of the being of a bowl, the being of a stone, the being of a wood, the being of a can, the being of a pen, we're talking of, okay, we're talking of infinite bowl, infinite can, infinite house. You are precisely referring univocally with the being of God. And that really that is a huge blow against Aristotle, because at least for Aristotle, he has so much respect for Plato's transcendental or extramental reality we call absolute transcendence, okay? So Thomas Aquinas found Aristotle that we can never ever be at par with transcendent or the eternal law. You can only be at the divine law, closer to the divine law, never to the eternal law. What John Duns Scotus said, no, we can be at the level of the eternal, transcendent reality. When we speak of the being of a pen, the being of a cup, the being of this bottle, the being of this scissor, it's univocally the same as the being of God. And the thing here is, in what John Duns Scotus would do is this. His notion of, okay, when you speak of transcendent, meaning you are infinite. For him, when you speak of infinite, you are not talking of quantitative, because normally we think of the infinite as quantitative, like unlimited, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't know until when you have a line, and we don't know until where it reaches. That's our understanding of infinite. For John Duns Scotus, this is, in this kind of understanding of infinite, we can say that the humans, the humans are finite, and then God is infinite, because we're looking at the perfections of humans in this way, quantitative perfection. But what John Duns Scotus will do is to have a qualitative understanding of the infinite. It's no longer being unlimited, but he would call this intrinsic excellence, meaning the maximal, okay, the maximal perfection you could give that being. If you say the being of a ball pen, you're talking of the intrinsic excellence of a ball pen, the maximal reality of a ball pen. If you speak of the being of stone, you're talking of the intrinsic excellence of the stone. If you speak of the being of the scissor, you are talking of the intrinsic excellence of the scissor, proper to the scissor rather. If you speak of the infiniteness of human beings, you're talking of the intrinsic excellence of human beings, intrinsic excellence proper to the human beings. When you speak of the infiniteness of God, you're talking of the intrinsic excellence of God. So they're precisely equal, right? And then you would say precisely that kind of passage I sent to you is kind of John Duns Scotus putting existence of creatures, okay, the same as God, and then John Duns Scotus, no. It's not even pantheism, because pantheism is all is God. What happens here is that there is intrinsic excellence proper to God. There's also intrinsic excellence proper to humans. You get that? Ballpenness is intrinsic excellence proper to ballpen. It is not an intrinsic excellence proper to God. perfect goodness, perfect benevolence is the intrinsic goodness proper to God. So what happens here is very subtle. That's why John Duns Scotus is called the subtle doctor, Doctor Subtilis, meaning you have to read. I mean, it's just like the divinity and humanity of Jesus, my dear brothers. Logically, you know that the humanity and divinity of Jesus are distinct, but they're also one. You get that? It's a kind of meaning we are so close to God, according to John Duns Scotus, we are so close to God. That's why sometimes we conflate, okay? Our mind is so close to God, so sometimes we conflate our kind of a intrinsic excellence with that of God. And that is because God willed that also, that his creature will be so close to him, that our intrinsic excellence would be so close to him, okay? Is this clear?
Yes,
So,
clear, Father.
okay, very clear. So what happens here is that everything, if this is God, okay, there is intrinsic excellence proper to God. There's intrinsic excellence proper to ball, to dogs, to cats, okay, to trees, okay? So if you define infiniteness as intrinsic excellence, meaning their internal essential excellence, okay, they are all infinite, but you know, that's why according to John Duns Scotus, the distinction, in reality, they are not one. God and the other objects, they are not one in reality, but in our mind, in our formal distinction, they are like one, or they are one. And that's why we call this transcendental realism. This culminates, okay, medieval philosophy. John Duns Scotus, the same as how Hegel would close modern philosophy, okay, with absolute idealism. John Duns Scotus will close medieval philosophy with absolute realism. And what happened after this, my dear brothers? You have this surge of skeptics like Michel de Montaigne and Gassendi, who was questioning, because John Duns Scotus was a standard that our mind is capable of positing things as if we are God, okay? And God gifted that to us, okay? That's the climax of humanity, okay? Even beyond angels, okay? So many are kind of contesting whether it's possible at all for us to have knowledge, okay, at par with God. But those who go against the skeptics, like René Descartes, for example, and then Leibniz, okay, if you have your modern philosophy, the rationalists, okay, will, because of John Duns Scotus, they will say that our mind is closer to God than our body. That's why if we use our mind, we can have concept of things around the same as how God looks at them. That's precisely the contention of the rationalists, okay? So what happened was that the rationalists would think along this line. So this transcendentia, okay, this one, according to rationalist Descartes, okay, these are possible to be thought of because this mind, okay, of the human person, of human beings, are so attached to God that we can kind of shall we say, apprehend this one. But the problem in this case, my dear brothers, is that the modern philosophers, because they still wanted to kind of claim that you cannot totally grasp this one. If you can grasp this one, it is the function of this one. And like what John Duns Scotus said, that you're so close to reality, Okay, but what happened here is that the modernists will focus more on the mental or the epistemological. That's why if you have pure ontology here in Jan Duns Scotus, what happened in modern philosophy is to develop the mind. Okay, the project of the rationalists is to develop the mind of humans, to remove it away from, to detach it away from the world and the body, in order for it to have a pure apprehension of this kind of a pure objects of knowing we call the transcendence. Okay, and that's precisely how modern philosophy was born, because of what Jan Duns Scotus did to philosophy of the medieval period. Questions before our break? We have 5 minutes before break. I would like to. So do you see now the gargantuan role of Jan Duns Scotus? Okay.
Father,
Yeah. Sure.
can you tell us more about the innate idea of the Descartes, Father? Innate idea.
Okay. Uh, you have to know that there are so many theories of innatism. So we have this what we call genetic innatism, meaning when you are born, what is with you, because genetic, what is given to you by your parents. Okay. For Aquinas, when we speak of innate ideas, we're talking of uh, those ideas which are universally, okay, universally in the mind of humans prior to being capable of counting. Okay, prior to being a child, for example, according to Descartes, a child, even if he doesn't know yet these notions of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but he would have a concept of succession. Okay, this one comes first, this one comes second, so he has this concept of succession. Okay, we call this a priori concept of time, or a priori conception of succession. Later, he would learn that it's called 1, 2, but prior to that kind of a knowledge of naming, the first is called 1, the second is called 2, he has this kind of a innate capacity to kind of count things. Okay, you get that? And that's universal according to the genetic innatism would be a matter of depending on the genes transmitted to you by your parents. If you have this kind of for Descartes, even if you are insane, you still have this innate knowledge. The problem is you cannot interpret that, because you cannot interpret the reason because of some distortions of the body. But it's possible, according to Descartes, to remove such distortion by removing the body. But the thing here, Sin, is that innate ideas for Descartes are those ideas, clear and distinct ideas, okay, put by God into our mind. And for him, such ideas are the same as how God is thinking of a cup, how God is thinking of a pen. That's innate ideas for Descartes. Okay? Although Pascal will go Augustinian, you can also have those ideas, but not from the mind, but from the heart for Pascal. Okay? That's innate ideas for Descartes. And because this is due to Jan Duns Scotus placing our mind so close to God, so sometimes you can have this not confusion but conflation, believing that how I can name this one will also be the way how God will name that one. There's this kind of a close affinity between the mind of God and the mind of us, because he put that in our mind. But the thing with the modern philosophers, they kind of backtrack from the medieval period's emphasis on the reality. Okay, because they are trying to convince people in the modern period that we cannot. There's later we'll talk about it. But then the thing here is the modern period will try to be realistic, that all our ideas about these things, okay, God, okay, the soul, for example, these are ideas implanted by God, but we are not God, okay? So Descartes actually is a very medieval philosopher. You have Pascal, you have Leibniz. They're very medieval philosophers, but they focus more on kind of being humble, okay? Away from the ambition of Jandan Scotus, away from the presumption of the medieval, high medieval philosophers who would claim that our mind could be conflated with the mind of God. So actually, you can appreciate, if you're a believer, if you want to detach the transcendence of God from humans, you would go more for Descartes than Jandan Scotus, because Jandan Scotus was really very radical. Okay, but because of Jandan Scotus, you have this rationalist thinking that indeed our mind is close to God. That's why we need to detach our mind. That's why the focus of the rationalist is to uh, uh, all the things around are just extensions. The body is just an extension, meaning the body got its notion because of the mind. Okay, and you remove the body. In your modern philosophy, your professor will teach you about the methodic doubt. So you eliminate these possible doubtable things until you end up with something you can never doubt, and that's doubting. That you don't doubt, that you're doubting. And doubting is part of thinking. Therefore, that's the kind of a basic, clear, and distinct idea. The thing that you can no longer doubt is that you are doubting. You get that?
Yes, Father. Thank you, Father.
Yeah. So we'll have a break, and then when we come back, then we'll go immediately to Immanuel Kant. Okay, so if you look at our illustrative map of our journey, so what I try to do in this class is more of a narrative way of teaching rather than the thematic way. For example, if we just talk about the themes like universals, like a predication, if we talk only about time and space, so you will not see the continuity of how being or ousia journeyed from being an ousia to being a substantia to being an essentia to transcendencia. And then, okay, because of this guy, this brother of Brother Pius, Jandan Scotus, okay, so medieval philosophy ended. Yeah, the same as Hegel in modern philosophy, after he had this sublative philosophy, his absolute idealism, he said, after me, nothing is new to philosophy anymore. The same with Jandan Scotus. If you look at his writings, he would say that after my philosophy, there's nothing to elaborate anymore. Okay, because everything is just encapsulated by this term being as transcendence. Okay, and many of the modern philosophers, whether you are a rationalist or an empiricist, okay, will try to bring this transcendence, okay, into the mind of the subjects, okay. So what happened, and I don't know, in your modern philosophy, there are so many factors that contributed to the transition from the medieval period to the modern period. You have the rise of individualism, okay, attributed to Martin Luther, to Niccolo Machiavelli, to Thomas Hobbes. And then you have this rise of humanism, like Erasmus of Rotterdam, for example. Remember these people? Okay. And then you have the rise of cash nexus. So cash was invented, meaning people now can have wealth in their hands rather than going to your mango trees or to your land. So wealth has become so portable, you can carry it everywhere. So meaning a farmer can just convert his land, or can just kind of come up with wealth on hand rather than an actual feudal property. So imagine the rise of anti-feudalist wealth, which means the cash nexus, the invention of the cash, for example. And then, of course, the rise of science with the Copernican revolution. What happened was that rather than reality giving us inspiration, according to the Ptolemaic astronomical theory, that the sun is the one going around the earth. That's the previous cosmology, but because of Copernicus and then with the eventual Galilean theory, what happened is it's us who is to go around the object rather than the object going around the subject. Okay? Do you remember this in your intro to your modern philosophy? So, but the kind of a most kind of a threatening program, or shall we say, challenge to philosophy, okay, after medieval philosophy is the rise of skepticism. Okay, skepticism, which would question now, okay, the possibility for us to know anything, okay, with the presumption that our mind, after all, okay, our mind is close to God, so close to God that we are capable of knowing the way God knows things. So the skeptics will rise against this formulation. No, we cannot know anything. What we know are kind of a mental, shall we say, inventions, mental apprehensions. There, we can never have access to reality, let alone transcendental reality. What we can know is how this reality is represented in our mind. Okay, meaning because it's in our mind, we are practically nothing. So because of this, the skeptics, shall we say, charge against a realism. So you have this people who are still very Catholic, like René Descartes. They wanted to defend the capability of mind to know things without kind of a doubt, without kind of a dismantling the possibility of knowing these things that we know. So what happened, my dear brothers, was that with Jan Dan Scotus, okay, this transcendentia will be taken, okay, this transcendentia rather will be taken as things in themselves, or later in Kant we call this the noumena. But these are the things in themselves, things which are transcendent realities. But for Jan Dan Scotus, his pure ontology will contend that we are capable of knowing this. So you have these modern philosophers, okay, whether you are a rationalist or an empiricist, this is inside our mind. Okay. So we have a priori facilities that could understand this. That's why we call this a priori ideas. Okay, but the empiricists would say no. What happened? But for the empiricists, however, my dear brothers, no, according to the empiricists, no, we can never know that. In fact, our ideas about this transcendence are coming from our senses. Okay, so we develop according to John Locke, to Berkeley, and then to David Hume, because this one, and then you have this idea of you have this kind of encounter of glass, for example, and then you relate them. So because of relational ideas, you come up, because of relational gathering coming from the senses, you come up with these ideas. So that's what happened with the empiricists. Okay. So that's the difference between, when we go to your epistemology, you have this clearer demonstration about this empiricist rationalist thing, because these are more conceptual. But what happened to ontology at this stage? Ontology became epistemological, because it's now up to the mind how to ascertain this reality kind of contained in reality. But when Kant arrived, my dear brothers, he would synthesize these formulations of the rationalists and the empiricists. Okay, so Immanuel Kant arrived with this exposure to British philosophers, especially Newton, for example, and then he read David Hume with so much fascination. But he also kind of enjoyed Leibniz, for example. So he has this exposure to the rationalist and the empiricist debate until Immanuel Kant would come up with a realization that all the things debated upon by the rationalists and the empiricists, okay, are the same. I mean, they just differ in terms of starting point, but actually they're just referring to kind of a one limitation of an approach to reality, which is what we call conceptual approach to reality. So in your modern philosophy, you'll be taught that for Kant, there are four important questions. Okay, there are four important questions in order to check the status of this mind, the status of our being a thinking being. Okay, so he will have four questions, and with these four questions, he will be able to demarcate, okay, the limits and the possibilities of philosophy and also metaphysics. So for Immanuel Kant, the four questions are: number one, what can I know? Number two, do you know what's number two? Sin, do you remember what's the number two? The second question of Kant. First is, what can I know?
I don't know, Father.
Anybody?
Isn't it where can I get the knowledge? We can.
No, it's under what can I know.
How do I know?
The second is, what can I do? The third is, what can I hope for? Hope. Okay, and the fourth is what is man. So the target is we can no longer rely, okay, because of the uh, revolutions, because of the kind of a collapse of many empires, okay, because of the collapse of kingdoms, and the religious kind of a institution was also collapsing, and we can no longer rely on religious authorities and political authorities or princes and kings, for example, an emperor. We can no longer rely on them to come up with a reason why we have God, to come up with grounds why we have morality, for example. So what he's trying to kind of formulate is what will happen to man if you don't have these references anymore for why do we do good, okay? Why do we need to have a community or a society? So the question now is to check the capacities and the limitations of human beings to be able to come up with kind of grounds for social construction, grounds for moral order, for example, because the end of scholasticism also ushered the end of religious authorities. Okay, that's why most of the modern philosophers were lay people, except for Malebranche and Berkeley, who were priests. But most of the philosophers in the modern period were lay people because the priests were no longer believable. Okay, people will no longer kind of look at priests, philosophers as credible because they will ground it to an absent authority because of the decadence of Europe during the time. Okay, so they no longer can appeal to an absent reality or a transcendent reality. They wanted a kind of a reality which is graspable, which is kind of a embraceable. That's why they go to what the inside of a human being can do. Okay, when we speak of what can I do, you're thinking of the part of a reality. Okay, so what happened with Kant, my dear brothers, is the transcendental realism of Scotus, this portion. For him, we can never know that. That's why he would call this the nomenon. The nomenon, or the thing in itself, or the things in themselves. We can never know that. What we can know is this aspect of reality, okay, he would call things as they appear, or the phenomenon, or things as they appear. So according to Kant, this is inside our mind, okay? Okay, so this phenomenon is the only thing our mind can approach, okay? Try to clear this up. So you have this phenomenon, or things as they appear. So this is the one which our mind can know, okay? And this phenomenon, my dear brothers, will have 3 layers, okay? First, we approach things, okay? We apprehend things first at the level of sensibility, okay? And then at the level of understanding, okay? Do you remember, do you have your modern philosophy already, my dear brothers?
Yes, Father.
Okay, you have Kant already?
Having now.
You have
We are
Kant already?
studying him now.
We are reading, Father. We are reading about that.
Okay, so anyway, your modern philosophy and your epistemology later We'll talk about those a priori reason, and then synthetic a posteriori, and then analytic a priori, and then synthetic a priori. So this is not a concern of our course, although we can expose them a bit in this metaphysical exposition. Okay, so we focus first on sensibility. So according to Kant, when we can never go into this nomenon. We can only approach this phenomenon. And this is called by scholars, my dear brothers, as transcendental idealism. Transcendental idealism meaning it is the mind, okay, which is capable, okay, of understanding this transcendent, okay, but what it can extract from the transcendent is only the phenomenon, not the nomenon. Okay? Later, there would be a controversy, my dear brothers, and that's precisely why scholars like Marion would think that this is the ontological for Kant, but actually, this is the conceptual, okay? This is the ontological, and there's a fight now among Kantian scholars, okay? But it is unfair to say that the ontological for Kant is at the level of conceptual. It's very unfair because if you read the Critique of Pure Reason and his kind of a prolegomena to any future metaphysics, he also speaks of ontological at the level, okay, of the non-conceptual, okay? But because Kant would concede, okay, to the impossibility of us being able to know the nomenon like God, freedom, soul, for example, these are things, okay, which we can never grasp. We can only have hints, okay, by way of phenomenon. We can only have hints, okay, but these hints will be captured by what we can know, okay. So at this level, so we call this transcendental idealism. For those scholars who would think that Kant's ontology is only at this level, we call this phenomenalism. But for me, it's very unfair. Many scholars will say it's very unfair because when Kant speaks of ontological, there are so many aspects, there are so many passages in the Critique of Pure Reason, and also in the prolegomena to any future metaphysics, that when he speaks of the ontological, he's not only speaking of the phenomenal, okay? But the thing here is our mind can only process the phenomenal aspect of the transcendent. So it is part of the transcendent, but it is a transcendental which is captured by the idea, by the mind. That's why Kant's ontology is called transcendental idealism. It is at this level, okay, but actually it started already with Descartes down to the empiricists, to David Hume, that grasping the things before us is a matter of mental exercise. The rationalists believe that, well, just like John Duns Scotus, no problem because our mind is after all the mind of God. They're so contiguous. The empiricists know our mind is a product of conglomeration and aggregation of our sensual processing. So the empiricists, they don't believe in the contiguity between the mind and the mind of God. And it was Kant who tried to reunite this kind of propositions of the rationalists and the empiricists. But for him, okay, there are two ways we can approach this phenomenon: at the level of sensibility, that's the empiricists, or at the level of understanding, which is kind of ushered by or promoted by or contended by the rationalists. Do you have questions so far? Questions so far?
So the nominum, Father, Hoàng, Father. So the nominum is like somehow like epistemology, Father, like a way.
No, no. The nomenon is the ontology. This is the pure ontology because they are the things in themselves. You cannot know them. Okay? The phenomenon is the epistemological. The phenomenon. Is this clear?
Yes, thank you, Father.
Okay. So, according to Immanuel Kant, at the level of sensibility, we approach things, okay? This is sensibility. We approach things according to categories of time and space. How does this happen? Okay, for example, Nam, could you please describe the things around you? Nam, tell us about the things around you. Nam.
Sorry, Father. I have a small bag.
Yeah.
I
And
have
then?
I have a pen. This boy, handsome boy. I have
And
a
then?
mouse.
What's the third? What's the third?
Hoi.
Okay.
The hot boy.
Okay, and then?
I have a nice mouse.
Okay, computer mouse. And then?
I am staying in a big library.
Okay. Okay, so what happens here, according to Immanuel Kant, my dear brothers? When Nam, okay, was apprehending these things, when I asked him to enumerate, his enumeration was based on, number one, time, succession, whatever is the reason why he said bag first, and then you have the pen first, and then you have Hoy first, and you have the mouse first, and you have the library, whatever is the reason, that's the least we can do, okay? When we apprehend something, okay? Even if you say bag and pen together, but the bag was first before the pen. You cannot say bag, you can never say, even your mind, okay? Even your mind cannot make the pen and bag simultaneous, right? You get that? Now,
Yes, Father.
so when you're thinking of the bag and pen, you cannot say that they are really simultaneous, okay? Even if you are able to say the pen first, but even if you would like to think that actually they're all of them are in their mind at the same time, no, they're never at the same time. At that moment, when you are apprehending this, you're using time as the measure of apprehending these things, okay? Or if you're not using time in terms of succession according to how it appears to your mind, so when Nam mentioned this, it happened that his mind, okay, is doing a successive enumeration or sequential enumeration, okay, the bag first, the pen, even if at that very moment, these five things could be interchanged depending on the train of thought, but you would see that at the level of sensibility, your first way of apprehending things is by succession. Even a baby will do this, even if the baby cannot yet name it, but the mind of a baby, according to Immanuel Kant, is given this capacity to approach things in terms of succession. And not only time, but also space. It could also be that when Nam was talking about these things, he's not talking in terms of succession, how it appears in succession in his mind, but in terms of extension. Extension meaning you have the the bag here, which is close, which is kind of easy to find. Okay, that the bag is close to the pen, and the pen is close to Hoy, and then the mouse is close to him, and then he's within the level. So it's also by way of extension. You get this? So there are two ways at the level of sensibility how you comprehend things: time and space, at the level of succession, at the level of extension. Is this clear? Claro. That's at the level of sensibility, meaning that the rawest way of apprehending things. Questions? By time, we're talking of succession. We're talking of seriation. Okay? When your mind become advanced, for example, you come up with concept of 1, 2, 3, 4, but that's kind of advanced already. But at the level of sensibility, according to Immanuel Kant, what we do, okay, when you wake up in the morning, your mind is thinking either at the level of extension, okay, I'll wake up, okay, brush my teeth, go to the chapel without taking a bath, okay, so or you're thinking of the bed, the table, the book. So it's how you comport yourself with the reality around you. That's at the level of sensibility. So the two categories of sensibility are time and space. Okay, but according to Immanuel Kant, time and space is in our mind. It is never in reality itself. Time and space not belong to reality itself. It is us who assigned this succession. It is us who assigned this extension, that the pen is here and the mouse is there. Okay, it is our mind. It's not the fault of the mouse why he ended up there near the pen or near the bag. So we call this kind of categories of sensibility. Clear? But that's the rawest, I mean, meaning pinakahilaw. Okay? Pinakahilaw na level of categorization for Immanuel Kant. Our mind is far more capable of the categories of sensibility. Do you have questions at this moment? That, could you please articulate why at the level of sensibility, everyone at the level of sensibility, okay, would approach things around by way of time or by way of space? Can you please articulate this?
We can approach the thing by the sensibility category by time and space. Time can need time can measure the thing, the sections. Like we never can think two things the same time. Just first and second and the third. And the second way to explain the sensibility is the space. The space is the extensor. The extensor is how we relate to another thing beside and
the position, the spacing, the position. Yes. Okay. Do you agree with that?
Yes, Father.
Okay. So no questions?
No more, Father.
Okay, very good. So for Immanuel Kant, at the level of sensibility, okay, you use time, the categories of time and space. But according to Immanuel Kant, our mind, okay, prior to experience, is capable, okay, of employing some categories. For example, when Nam said, I have here a bag, okay, it's not two bags, but one bag. I have here the library. So he is not only talking about time and space, he is talking about higher categories, okay, that would make a bag a separate entity compared to the pen a separate entity compared to the mouse is a separate entity compared to the library. So our mind has this capacity for categories of understanding. And if you remember, in Aristotle, you have 10 categories, and Kant will have these 12 categories, meaning everything you say about things would fall into these 12 categories. Okay, when you speak of categories, what do you mean by categories? What do you mean by categories? Wa?
Father, Radha lost internet already, Father.
Huh?
Radha is lost internet connection.
Where is he now?
He he lost the internet, Father. He's stay in the theology house, he's not stay with us.
Ah, okay. So, Dane, what do we mean by categories, Dane? Dane?
Or, what, Father?
What do we mean by categories?
Categories for
No, I mean
Aristotle,
categories.
Father?
The word category in philosophy.
Category?
What do you mean by category? Yeah, in philosophy. What do you mean by category?
Like description, Father?
No, the simplest understanding of what a category is. Yeah. When you speak of a category, what do you mean by that?
The division, Father.
Yeah, that's aspect. But a category means everything in this world has it. For example, if we say feeling is a category, meaning everything has feelings, even a stone has feelings. According to Alfred North Whitehead, for example, the highest category is feeling, meaning even stones have feelings, okay? So category means everything in this world has that. It makes, okay, it's a kind of a universal attribute, okay? Meaning everything. You have to remember this, okay? Claro? For Kant, there are 12 categories, okay? Don't worry, my dear brothers, if we get through this, sisyo na lang si Kant, okay? So, for Kant, there are 12 categories. He will improve on Aristotle's. What happened? Did you talk already of Kant's categories? Not yet, in other courses.
Not yet, Father.
Okay, we'll do this slowly and carefully. How come I cannot? Anyway. Are you still okay? Kaya pa ba? Kaya pa? So for Kant, you have 4 times 3 categories, which means 12. Okay, you have quantity, quality, and then you have relation,
Morality.
and then you have what? Modality. Okay, and there are 3. Okay, 3 qualifications for every for each of these classifications. Under quantity, you have unity, or we call this singularity. And then you have plurality. And then you have totality. Then under quality, you have this what we call affirmation, or we call this reality also, affirmation. And then we also have this negation. And then we have this limitation. And then the third, under relation, you have this substantiality or substance. You have this causality, and then you have this community. And then under modality, by your brother, meaning the capacity for change, okay? Another way, you have this possibility. And then you have this actuality, and then you have this necessity. Okay, we'll have this, we'll just focus first on quantity and quality, then we'll have a break. Okay, so can I ask a Trong, Anthony?
Sorry, Father, he cannot, he has some problem with his throat, Father. He cannot speak, Father.
What's happening to people?
He is not allowed to talk, Father.
Okay, Hoy, is Hoy available? Hoy has no problem. Hoy?
Yes, sir, I'm here, Father.
He's
Okay,
very strong.
Hoy. Okay, use the pen, Hoy, in categorizing according to quantity. Use the pen in categorizing according to, this is to prove, my dear brothers, that all these 12, everything has all these 12, or you can do to things, to everything in this world by this. So these are the universal categories. Okay, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so meaning our mind is capable of talking about things by way of these 12. Okay, pen, we'll start with the pen. Hoy. Very easy. Singularity, you have?
One pen, a pen.
Very good. Plurality, you have?
Two or more than
Many
pens.
pen. Okay, very
Many
good.
pens.
Very easy. Totality meaning?
Pens. We have the pen. Only we have the pen to use.
No. Totality. We're not talking of teleology. That's Aristotelian. Totality. What do you mean by totality?
I have 10 pens or on the pens.
All, very good. So you have either, so in terms of quantity, anything in this world. In terms of quantity, you can speak of either one pen, one glass, or many pens, or many glasses, or all the pens and all the glasses. Nothing more. In terms of quantity, that's the way how our mind approaches things. Okay? Claro? Okay. Antonio, in terms of quality, Antonio, again, we use the pen. Okay, in terms of affirmation, say something affirmative about the pen.
It can use for writing.
Okay, is it true or not, my dear brothers? Is it true or false? Do you affirm that the pen is for writing? Of course, obviously. Okay, how about negation? Give us a statement that it's a negation on the pen.
It cannot use for
Can you eat the pen?
no.
Okay, so affirmation, the pen is for writing. Negation, the pen is for eating. It's a negation, okay, not for eating. What about limitation?
It cannot the ink will finish like that.
Yeah, or it can use it can be used for measurement, but it doesn't have numbers, so it has limitations in terms of measurement. Okay? Very good, Antonio. So all these things, according to Kant, it's either you attend to them, apprehend them by way of quantity, singularity, plurality, or totality, or whether you affirm it, you negate it, or you have a maybe. Yes, no, or maybe, or sort of, or somewhat.
Excuse me, Father.
Yeah, sure.
What Antonio said was not clear for us here. I do not know what he said.
Okay, can somebody, is there somebody who kind of received me clearly? And I mean, since when? Since quantity?
Just about the limitation on the Father. What Antonio
Okay.
said.
So in terms of limitation, for example, you have this pen, there is something affirmative, but it's not totally affirmative. For example, this pen is used as a ruler. Yeah, it can be, but it cannot really be used kind of a completely as a kind of a maybe. We call it somewhat. There's a limitation. It can be used maybe as a, it can be used as a, what, a an arrow for the dart, but it has limitations. You get that? It's like the cup, for example. The cup is to contain water. That's affirmative. The cup uh, can be used as soap. No, it cannot be. The cup can be used as a holder of gas or air. Yes, but not so. So it's a kind of, there's a limitation. There are things wherein it can be affirmative. There are times it can be negative. There are also times which is in between the positive and the negative. That's limitation. Okay? Limitation is a cross between affirmative and negative. Claro, Rol? Yeah, very good. So we'll have a break, and then I promise when we settle with these 12 categories, Kant will be very easy to tackle. Okay, 15-minute break. or by way of plurality, or by way of totality? One, many, all. By way of quality, if you are going to describe or account for things by way of quality, you can only do three ways. It's either yes, no, or maybe. Okay? Yes, no, or sort of, perhaps. Okay? In terms of relation, this is getting more complicated. In terms of relation, what are the three kind of categories, Oy, in terms of relation?
Causality. The first is inherence and subsistence.
That's very good. And then substance or inherence or subsistence, or sometimes we call that identity. The other one is
cause and effect, the causality.
Yeah, causality, or sometimes we call that alterity.
Okay.
And then the third one is
the community.
Community. Okay, again, the pen. What is the pen in terms of substantiality or inherence?
It is the exist of the band, Father.
Yeah.
Existence of the band.
Yeah.
And how this band exists.
Yeah. So what is the substance of a pen?
Bandness.
What?
The bandness.
Okay, so we can say inherence of a pen, meaning you cannot think of a pen without thinking of, for example, writing. Okay, writing. That's its substance. Okay. Of course, you can think of many other ways. Okay. How about causality? What causes the pen? Okay. What is outside of the pen which causes the pen to be itself?
The purpose of the band, Father.
The cause, not the cause of the pen to be a pen, to become a pen.
For the purpose for writing.
Yes, yes.
And how is it?
What is something outside of the pen, okay, without which it cannot be?
Without writing, it cannot be a pen, Father.
For example, ink. Yeah, of course, writing, the writer, okay, the writer is also, but for example, the ink, for example, because I'm just using a very, so you have the pen and then you have the ink. These are out, this is another, right? And then in terms of community, what can you speak of community in terms of, I mean, how can you speak of pen and ink? So the community of pen and ink. You get that? Of course, you can think of many other ways, like the pen and the writer, the pen and the pen maker. So, but it will end up with these two, and you will come up with a community, right? It's just like, for example, Harold. Harold is the substance. Causality is the father of Harold, and then community, father and son. Of course, you can think of any other ways, like Harold is a substance. The cause is his brother, or the other is his brother, and then you have brotherhood as the community. You get that? So that's the three possibilities you can think of relation for things. Okay, these are the three ways you can think of everything around you can be kind of accounted for relationally by way of identity, causality, and community. Okay? Claro?
Clara.
Okay. So can somebody give me another example? Anybody? Ba, could you give me an example? Is ba okay? Okay ba yung ngipin ni ba? Ba?
Yes, Father.
So by community, we're not only talking of people in community. We're talking of even things like you have the egg, and then you have the causality as the chicken community, chicken and egg. Okay, easily, very easy. Of course, you can complicate that. You can complicate that, of course, when you have the stars, okay, and then you have the gravity, and then you have the heavenly bodies, okay. You can complicate, but according to Kant, wherever you go, whatever you do in terms of relation, there are only three ways how to speak of things around in terms of relation. Either by in itself or by other, especially the cause of this itself, and then you have this community. Okay, Ba, can you please give me an example, Ba, using relation as a category for anything?
Yes, Father. I would like to take the example of the book. Father.
Sure.
The substance of the book is to reading, for reading.
Yeah, very good.
And the second is the causality is that it was composed by paper, it was printed. And the third is it become a book itself because of the composing, like the book. It's already the book.
So what's the community there?
Community here is the book itself. It was composed by reader.
So the substance is the book. What's the causality? What's the alterity?
It is the paper.
The paper.
Yes. And the community is the me and the book. Is it the human and the book?
What? It's a paper, meaning alterity, it should outside, right? Can you speak of book without a paper?
Cannot
yes,
be,
Father, e-book, Father, e-book. Okay. Anyway, so it should be an other, okay, like the writer, okay, or the reader. Even the reader could be a causality because it can never be a book unless there is someone who causes it to be readable as a book, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the relation is the community is the writer and the reader through the book.
Or the writer and the book.
Yes, Father, the writer and the book.
Okay. Or the literary community. Okay.
Yes, Father.
So we're doing this simplistically with simple examples, but of course this could complicate when you speak of, shall we say, honor, for example, future, for example. But we're doing this in simple terms, okay? But when we speak of, for example, conviction in terms of causality, what is conviction in terms of community, which of course is not, we're not going to deal with that because I want you to have a relaxed post-typhoon experience this morning. Okay, thank you, that's very good. Now we go to the last one, which could be even more complicated. We call the modality. Modality again, other than I mean, the different ways a thing can be. Okay. So can we have Jason? Can you give an example of the pen, for example, Jason, in terms of possibility? How can you speak of the pen in terms of possibility, Jason? What is the possibility surrounding the pen?
The pen can use for writing, drawing, or can use for
in terms of actuality,
writing.
In terms of actuality, how can you speak of the pen?
The pen can be without ink. The pen cannot be write or draw.
And then you can use it for your earwax. If it doesn't have an ink, then you just use it for your earwax to remove your earwax. That's just an actuality. So possibility and actuality depending on the state of a particular object. And then in terms of necessity, meaning a pen is necessarily for?
In terms of necessary writing.
Yeah. So
for the writing materials.
Or it kind of having an it depends. We're just talking of example here. So for anything under modality, so it has three ways. It could be otherwise in terms of possibility, in terms of actuality, in terms of necessity. Claro ba? Is this clear?
Father,
Can
you
Questions?
can you repeat the necessity, Father? Kasi a little bit choppy po.
Okay. For example, according to Jason, this is the pen. In terms of possibility, a pen can be for writing. That's a possibility. It could also be for drawing. It could also be for removing something from your earwax, okay, from your ears, okay. It can also use to stab somebody. So all these possibilities, okay. Can you use the pen for drinking? Antonio, maybe the ink, you can drink the ink, okay. But anyway, so okay, very good. So also by way of actuality, okay, in actuality, the pen now has no ink, okay, no ink, so it cannot be for writing, okay. And then in terms of necessity, the pen should be for writing, regardless of it is in the state of possibility or it is not in the state of actuality. There is this necessary expectation what to be a pen is. For example, should be for writing. Okay, so anyway, you can use other examples and then you can navigate this pen or any example or any object in terms of modality. And according to Kant, you can speak of modality in three ways, like possibility, actuality, and necessity. Klaro na ba, Antonio? Antonio, is it amenable for you?
Thanks, Father.
Okay, so what happens in Kant, my dear brothers, is you have this thing and you have this mind, okay? You have this this is our idea or the subject. That's why for Kant, if you remember, Kant would say, go back to the subject themselves. So it should be the subject who will determine what he can know and conceptualize about this object. This is the real, or this is the object, okay? And according to Kant, okay, the transcendent mentioned by Jandan Scotus is what we call nomenon. What we can know is only this area here called phenomenon, okay? We can put this, okay, we can grasp this inside this mind. That's why we call this a transcendental idealism, meaning we get from this transcendent what we can conceptualize, okay, so we call this transcendental idealism. It's not here, but somewhere here. Okay, so what happened is first, at the level of experience, at the level of sensibility, we approach this phenomenon by way of time and space, by way of succession and extension. At the second level, we can approach this by way of the categories of understanding, the 12 categories of understanding. Okay. Okay. But, and this is the most crucial in Kant, my dear brothers, the question now is, isn't there really a way for us to apprehend this nomenon? Okay, because what can be discerned in the Kant's critique of pure reason, and then later the prolegomena to any future metaphysics, even if we can only apprehend this, but according to Immanuel Kant, this mind is still ambitious. Okay, this mind is still very ambitious to be able to kind of apprehend this. Okay, so we have this third layer of the mind we call pure reason. Okay, so again, just like Thomas Aquinas and John Duns Scotus, the project of transcendental idealism or Kantian ontology is it possible to comprehend these things by pure reason, meaning not using divine illumination, okay, not using what we call ontological formulation. So that's the meaning. How can we can we grasp this nomenon by way of pure reason? Okay, and of course, according to Immanuel Kant, you cannot reach the nomenon, you cannot approach the nomenon by way of this one. You can approach the nomenon by way of this one, because these two categories of sensibility and categories of understanding can only apprehend the phenomenon. So it can only approach this one. But the nomenon, according to Kant, you need another layer in the mind. You need another apparatus, or shall we say infrastructure or capacity in our mind to be able to reach the nomenon. It's not by way of understanding, it's not by way of sensibility. Okay? So according to Immanuel Kant, my dear brothers, because our conceptual reason, these two, cannot attend to this. Oh, no, sorry. Attend to this. It can only attend to this, but it can never reach this. According to, there is another there are other kinds of reason in ourselves which are capable of grasping this. And one of this reason is what we call practical reason. So what you cannot do in thought, for example, okay, you cannot sense God, okay, you cannot describe, okay, can you describe God in terms of succession? God in himself, not the God as he appears, huh? Okay, God in, can you describe God in terms of succession and extension? No.
No.
Can you describe God in terms of the 12 categories? Can you say God in himself?
I think no, Father.
Yeah. If it's possible, if you can say that God is singular rather than plural, or God is all, what you're doing is it will come from an intuition, okay, in your mind, which applies to, okay, according to Kant, sometimes our categories of understanding will be used to describe a thing in itself. But actually, for example, we can call God one, okay? We can call our soul one, for example, or we can call our soul plural, but this is not true according to Immanuel Kant. We can never ever ascertain God in terms of number, okay? We can never ever ascertain, okay, God in terms of, shall we say, modality or relation. If ever we can assign to God this possibility, if ever we can assign to God, actually, we only know an aspect of God, okay? Not really the totality of God. Now, the question now is, can we have a grasp of God in himself rather than just God as it appears? So according to Kant, no, our categories of sensibility are spatio-temporal categories. The categories of understanding will not be able to approach the totality of God or the nomenon, okay, but our action, like you kneel, for example, you pray, for example, that's how you approach God. It's not the conceptual reason, but practical reason. Or, if not your practical reason, it's also your aesthetic judgment. That's why Kant has three critiques: the critique of pure reason. If pure reason fails, then you go to the critique of practical reason. If our reason, for example, you have this person, you can understand who he is or who she is, and you can't really just kind of determine him by way of this 12 categories, for example. What you do is just love him or just love her, okay? So action will take over if the mind cannot do that. That's how the subject will approach the thing in itself, okay? And if not, if action is not capable, then you have another level that, according to Immanuel Kant, if action is not capable, then faith will take over, hope will take over. So for Immanuel Kant, this mind of ours, sensibility, understanding, so at this level, we call this, my dear brothers, the metaphysics of nature. Or we call this also, okay, we call this the metaphysics. So these two layers of our mind is what we call the metaphysics of nature. And this is where some scholars will say that the ontology of Kant is conceptual, because he looked at this two, he looks at these two as metaphysics, meaning the ontology of nature. But this is not enough. You also have what we call metaphysics of morals. Metaphysics of morals. If the metaphysics of nature, the way you apprehend things, will not be enough to understand this nomenon. So again, the metaphysics of nature can only understand the phenomenon. These two can understand only the phenomenon. Now this level will try to understand the nomenon. At first level, we put the metaphysics of morals. What do you mean by this? Meaning our morality, okay, our morality can tell...
Sorry, Father.
Sure. Wang?
Can you speak? Can you explain again, Father? Because your internet connection, it was not really good.
It's
Father.
not clear.
It's not clear, Father.
My
Because
connection,
when
you
you speak.
How about now?
Yes,
How
Father.
about now?
Yes, Father.
How
yes,
about
now
now?
It's okay. But at the beginning, now it's okay, Father.
When you were talking, Father, it was a bit choppy.
Okay. How about now? Am I clear? Am I audible? How about now?
Yes,
Yeah,
Father.
Father.
Yes, Father.
Okay. Just tell me if ever, no problem. Okay. So supposing this is the nomenon and this is the phenomenon, this is our mind. Okay. You have this, what we call metaphysics of nature. By metaphysics, meaning the ideal concepts of apprehending the phenomenon, metaphysics of nature. And then if because metaphysics of nature cannot apprehend this, we need another metaphysics. We call this metaphysics of morals. Our morality will give us grounds why there is a God, okay? Our morality, for example, goodness of humanity, okay? Shall we say, preserving life over death. So these are moral kind of convictions which will make us believe that it comes from the nomenon. Okay, metaphysics of, we call this metaphysics of morals. Is this clear? Am I clear? Did you hear me? Did you hear me, my dear brothers?
Yes, Father.
Okay, so
Your
the nomenon
internet
is what we
has
call...
problem again, Father.
Huh? Okay, this nomenon is called pure ontology or pure metaphysics. Okay. But according, so this is the pure, this is the ontological, this is what we call the conceptual metaphysics, these two. So according to Immanuel Kant, these two metaphysics is two conceptual ontologies, okay? No, this conceptual ontology and this practical ontology, they are inside the mind, but according to Kant, okay, you need also the existence of another, because some scholars will say that everything is just in the mind in Kant. That's not true. For Kant, it is also important for a reality outside of the mind to be there, to exist in reality. Okay? There must be something real or transcendent outside the phenomenon. Otherwise, this metaphysics will not be possible. So when Kant was asking, is metaphysics possible as a science? Yes, it's possible as a science. Number one, by way of our categories, metaphysics of nature, categories of sensibility, and categories of understanding. And if our categories of sensibility and categories of understanding, or if our ontology of nature, okay, is it capable of apprehending this reality, then we go to a deeper aspect of our reason, we call practical reason. And then we also have this, what we call a aesthetic reason, the capacity to hope, the capacity to believe. So it's in the mind, but for Kant, there must be an existent reality outside of the mind so that, okay, so that our metaphysics, our conceptual metaphysics could be activated. Is this clear, my dear brothers? So this is the reason why some scholars would say Kant's ontology is conceptual, because they are focused only on these two metaphysics, okay, which can't believe the only thing we can have, but they are, but this metaphysics, this metaphysics of morals and metaphysics of nature would point to a higher metaphysics, which our mind cannot grasp, but it is there. Okay? It is there. It is not something like a kind of a just floating in the air. It is there, but our metaphysics can only be about metaphysics of nature and metaphysics of morals. Okay? But it is not that we are the one inventing this metaphysics. It is also inspired by. Okay? When we look at a person, for example, and even if, okay, when you look at a person when you meet somebody in the street, and you just presume that person is good, you do not know whether he is insane. You just don't think that the person will hurt you, meaning you believe in the universal goodness. Even if you just walk on the street, you encounter someone, and sometimes you just presume that he is rational, okay? So that alone, that presumption that everyone on the street, even if sometimes it happens, somebody will rob you or snatch you, but there's just this kind of a presumption that everyone is good with you. That's already a metaphysics of morals. It points to a deeper reality. There must be universal goodness. And if there is universal goodness, then there must be a God. You get that? Is this kind of making sense to you, my dear brothers? Questions?
Father, may I have to ask for the clarification, Father?
Yeah, sure.
Father, you said a while ago that for Kant is the only way that to approach the nomenon, that is the pure reasons. And
Yeah.
and and the second is
No,
that.
you mean the nomenon ba is not the pure reason, huh?
Yes, Father. Just that's
But pure
one way,
reason.
one way to approach it, isn't it, Father?
Yeah.
And the other one is that Kant, for Kant to grasp the nomenon is not just about the mind, and just it also about the practical reasons. So
Yeah.
if the metaphysic, it means to say that the metaphysic of the nature and metaphysic of our morality, if two of them are failed uh, to grasp the nomenon, that there must be something outside of our mind and outside of our natures.
Yeah.
So
You
that
can
we
say
could
something
eat
like
God.
that. Huh? What?
So that we could eat this God, the existence outside of our mind and
Yeah.
the existence of the outside of our mind and nature. That is the God, isn't it, Father?
Yeah. You can say like that, but the formulation is this. Okay. Why is it that human beings are not contented with just things of nature, for example? I mean, you believe there are things in nature, the trees, okay, the sun, the moon, the stars. But why is it that uh, you're not contented with that? You go out of your house, okay, and then you just believe that you just kind of believe that this thing that I am going to meet is just just rational, meaning these are beyond natural, right? To think of someone as good, he will not harm me, even if he's a stranger. You just have this presumption, so that's already at the level of morals. Okay, so it cannot be categorized in terms of sensibility.
Job again, Father.
It can categorize in terms of categorical imperative. You know the categorical imperative? You know the categorical imperative? If it cannot be categorized according to the conceptual categories, you categorize, for example, free will, freedom. You cannot describe the freedom by way of sensibility, right? You cannot describe freedom by way of
Understanding.
conceptual. Yeah, you can only describe freedom by way of
Living.
categorical imperative or moral categories. Okay? Right? But you can.
just
Yeah.
yes, sir.
So
You
things
continue,
like
Father.
soul, God, okay, freedom, and the world, okay? The world in itself, not the world as they appear to us, okay? They cannot be grasped, they cannot be accounted according to the metaphysics of nature. They're beyond nature, okay? That's why we appeal to another metaphysics. We call it metaphysics of morals. By morals, meaning, why is it that I expect someone, I do good to someone, for example, the golden rule. Why is it that I do good to someone? Because I just expect that if I do good to him, he will also do good to me. Where did that come from? Did my mind invent that? There must be something outside of my mind which make me think, okay, that there is universal goodness. Okay? But it's not the totality of the nomenon, but you have these pointers, the metaphysics of morals, okay? This metaphysics beyond the metaphysics of nature would point to a transcendent reality outside of the mind. So, because some commentators will say Kant is just a phenomenalist, okay? Which I disagree, and many scholars will, it's not true. Because if Kant is a phenomenalist, why would he mention about nominalist? If after all we cannot kind of apprehend, we cannot embrace the nomenon. Why would you discuss that? Okay, for Immanuel Kant, there is a nomenon, but my conceptual aptitude can only capture the phenomenon. Okay, the things which appear from the nomenon, but I will not be contented. Human beings will not be contented if I cannot, for example, there is this person, I can think of her as a woman, okay, that I can marry her, okay, but that's kind of a what we call you need another metaphysics in order to believe that this person, I can live forever with this person, that this person is good enough to be a wife for myself. So you need another metaphysics beyond space and time, beyond the 12 categories. You need the kind of a metaphysics of, shall we say, human goodness, okay? Or there must be a soul beyond the body, or there must be a God. Kant, the metaphysics of morals will you is in, okay? It is an indicator that our mind has this ambition, if not an ambition, has this inspiration that a reality outside of it, okay, is activating our mind to believe that there's a God, there's a soul, there is freedom. Is this bearable? Apollo, is this bearable? Yeah. So when we speak of conceptual ontology or transcendental idealism of Kant, we're talking of the metaphysics of nature and metaphysics of morals. If we speak of his transcendent ontology, we believe, I personally, and many scholars believe, he has a transcendent realism, but we cannot grasp it the way we grasp the phenomenon. We use another faculty of ourselves, of our mind, to grasp it, either by action or by faith. Okay? Meaning metaphysics is possible as a science through, number one, sensibility and understanding. Number two, by way of morality, foundation of morality. That's why you have this critique of practical reason and metaphysics of morals. Outside that is reality in itself, okay? I will not grasp it kind of totally, but I have my own ways, like hoping, believing, okay? Doing good as my way of apprehending that nomenon. What time is it? How much time do we have, Pius?
12, Father.
What? We still have 12 minutes?
No, it's 12
Okay.
o'clock. It's noon already. Yeah.
So this is very clear already. So at least you can have a picture of Kant's metaphysics, and you would know why he is very influential, because so much possibilities can be thought about this. Okay, of course we can probably touch on this more next time, but we'll have to go to Heidegger already next time. I'm very sorry. But what happens here is that you have this subject, you have this object, okay? Part of this object is ascertainable by the mind, the physics of nature. The other one is ascertainable with the metaphysics of morals, okay? And that's only, that's up to it. The human beings, this mind can only approach the nomenon outside of that. When Hegel came, your brother Hegel came, he said, there's a way for this mind to reach this one by way of history. Okay? We call this absolute idealism. In history, if this mind will wait, in history, time will come that they will meet. But anyway, that's not our business. Maybe we'll cover it before. That's how Hegel also will culminate kind of a modern philosophy. For him, no. For Kant, Kant is kind of a concessional, meaning no, our mind cannot grasp it all. But Hegel said it's possible, but we wait for the development of the scientists who discover the world, and then theologians and philosophers could in history, by way of history, we can kind of reach the or can grasp the nomenon. We will call it not anymore transcendental idealism, but absolute idealism. The mind can kind of grasp the nomenon by way of a synthesizer. And this synthesizer is the spirit. Okay. Anyway, don't be preoccupied with that, but that's how Kant would kind of a banner a very influential stage of metaphysics that is, shall we say, ideal metaphysics. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
The Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, next
Thank
week
you,
we'll have
Father.
our exercise. Please tell the others we'll have our exercise exam next week on camp. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Father.